Dylan Scroggins, thank you for hopping on with me. We've got some perspective that's timely and necessary right now coming into Q4 with even literally today layoffs hitting the news. And people are scrambling. People are wondering. Somebody recently used the phrase I'd never heard before called layoff fatigue to me.
Mhm.
And I'm so interested to just get your perspective on what's going on out there. What are executives seeing? What are companies seeing? Trying to fill roles and really what's the lay of the land from your perspective. But you are in charge of the Kalmar Group recruiting, and I want to hear more about you as we get into your perspective on what in the world is happening right now. Give me a little
Yeah.
background.
No, thanks for connecting. You know, talking about the markets, especially the 24-hour news cycle, I understand the people that have layoff fatigue, but some of that's just, I think, just news fatigue in general. People have been
Mm,
laid off for millenniums, but I think it's important to keep it all in perspective, right? This is a unique time of year, though, because people are planning for Q4 and planning for 2026. And I get asked about this a lot in regards to just recruiting and just a little, I guess, background. We do a lot of recruiting for director, VP, C-level type roles, typically in privately owned businesses and sales, marketing, operations, finance. So
mhm,
I have zero expertise in healthcare recruiting or high level staffing firms, anything like that. So take everything I say with a grain of salt always, but especially now. But what we're seeing a lot in the private markets is there's a lot, it's not so much AI, right? It's not like the robots are taking everybody's jobs.
mhm,
It's more of just a very stagnant market. So compared
mm,
to real estate, a really great house in a great neighborhood is still going to sell for a great price. So if you're a
mhm,
great candidate and your skill set and outputs are very needed and you have a specific and reasonable price tag, you're still going to find a role. But the house that's in an okay neighborhood, okay, school system, okay, this or that, is going to sit on the market a little longer. So I think that's the challenge right now. It's just a very flat market. And also historically, we're used to high highs of like post COVID, but also like
mhm,
low lows of like 2008, 2010. Mentally, we don't really know how to like comprehend to just a stagnant, steady, neutral market. And I think that's what's
mhm.
causing a lot of frustration.
That's interesting. So like some recency bias on what we're quote unquote expecting in movements and transitions and in recruiting. Just as things shift kind of in the way that things shift, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Go
Yeah.
pull up your own house on Zillow and
Hmm.
pull up your resume. And that's how your resume is perceived the last 6
Gotcha.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that tracks. That tracks. I'm actually you were kind of downplaying the private, but across industries, and that's really one of the things that fascinates me is you're touching different industries, and it's sure there's some maybe that you don't touch, but like seeing across that landscape a little bit more, I think is it's what makes me want to hear from you. Honestly, is that you're saying if you're a hot commodity, you've still got the ability to command roles and interest at least. What are you seeing in the candidates you're talking to or the roles that are being sought to be filled make someone great?
Yeah. So I think, like anything, it's about being specific and being reasonable, right? So if you really, really want a fully remote role and the company
Mm,
that you're wanting to work for is an office 30 minutes away
mhm.
and they want you in the office 3 days a week, you might need to cave a little,
Like,
right?
yeah, compromise.
But also, if you're a company and you find a great candidate, but you're not willing to pay 10K more and add a 5% swing on that bonus, you might need to compromise. So we're still in that market where no, I don't see like a high strength on either side. Like it's not like a seesaw where one side's up and one side's down with all the leverage. It's
Mhm,
pretty neutral. So I know I'm repeating little things I said earlier, but if you're a great candidate and you want to find a new role or you're recently terminated, I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a second,
mm,
and you need a new role, even in those scenarios, be really specific about what you can and can't do from a financial standpoint, from a skill set standpoint, from like a responsibility standpoint. You might need to cave a little on the title, right? If you
mm,
really want to roll in this market. But at the same time, you know your price and you don't have to take a 30K haircut to get a role you want. You might just have to wait a little more. So there's a lot of dancing right now in the market. And it's really dealer's choice on the risk you're willing to take on not accepting a role, not searching for a role, or on the company side, not offering a role.
Interesting. So you said the biggest asset is being specific and being reasonable. Would you say, in your experience, one of those more than another handicaps people's efforts? Like, are people more likely to be non-specific, or are they more likely to be unreasonable?
Unreasonable,
Okay.
100%. And what I mean by that is, let's say you want, 180 base and a 10% bonus.
Mhm.
Okay, that's very specific and very reasonable for a lot of roles. When we're talking about director, VP style.
Right.
If you come in wanting 240 and 5% of the company, that's very specific, but not
Yeah.
very reasonable. And on the other end, if someone makes what they think is a good offer and you say, hey, I need it to be a little bit more. Okay,
Mhm.
that's reasonable, but it's not very specific. So it's all about leverage, right? But I think that's the challenging part about this market is that you don't know how hard to push because you know that
Mhm.
opportunities, especially at leadership level, are few and far between. So that's where the risk comes as a high
Mhm.
performer in that director and VP C-level seat is that, hey, if you're not willing to take it, else might be able to. And if that
Mhm.
ship passes, will there be another one at the dock? I don't know because there's not a lot of those leadership
Yeah.
style opportunities in the market right now.
So I want to talk about that specifically on the like employee side, the executive searching side. But first, let's talk about the market a little bit more. Are you seeing across the industries you work in, or even if you're hearing buzz around, are there for in these leadership roles specifically? Because I think we're all hearing headline versions of AI taking swaths of workers out. As far as like
Clickbait.
that's the thing that's out there. But for these leadership roles, are you seeing certain industries right now still showing more heat behind them than others, more cooling off faster than others right now as we head into the end of the year? Any perspective on that?
Yeah, I think in general, one of the hottest hiring seasons, and that sounds, I feel like I was like, you know, I feel like some clickbait author, like time is hot
I like
now.
it.
Uh,
It's hot.
it's hot. It's hot, hot, so hot. No, I would say, look, kids run our economy. And I'll give you a little more hindsight. It's a very good time to be looking for a role or hiring for a role right now. Why
Okay.
is that? Because from the time kids get back to school, which is typically the first to third week of August, to Thanksgiving, that's the time to make a deal. That's when
Hmm.
a lot of searches get started. Searches still close between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and January, but they don't get started. So
Hmm.
between Thanksgiving, that last bite of turkey, when you wake up from your nap to watch the Lions win, when they used to lose, to Valentine's Day, when you're sprinting to the chocolate shop because you forgot your wife something, that is a window of time where not a lot of searches get started. Because at the beginning of the year, people are evaluating budgets and people are just lazy and they say, oh,
Mhm.
we're recovering from the end of the year. And you're like, dude, it's February 3rd. Like, how are you not recovering? So just know that if you're a high performer looking for a new role or you're a role looking for a high performer, now is the time to start. Not saying you have to close it before Thanksgiving. So to answer your question, look, a lot of the private markets, like a lot of the big, like, Washington Post, New York Times, Reuters articles, yes, it does trickle down, but there's plenty of family offices, PE, holdcos, just like ETA type businesses that are still hiring, man. They're so busy and
Mm.
trying to grow. They don't have time to look at the headlines to be fearful. They're just like focused on their business. So I think a lot of my market right now, once you get pretty steady, nothing too crazy either way, but just from a timeline as a whole between kids getting back in school and Thanksgiving is the best time to find a new role or to find someone for a role.
Man, that's interesting. I never heard that before. It reminds me of your analogy of the housing market when you first kicked off, where you really realtors talk all the time about like when is the right time to list or whatever. But you're
Yeah.
saying if there was a right time to list in your world, it's right now.
100%. Now, and the other kind of window per se is between like Valentine's Day and kids getting out of school. Tell you, man,
Interesting.
kids run the economy, right?
Yeah.
In the summer, I've got searches that typically take 5 weeks, take 7 weeks, or 3 weeks, take 6 weeks. Like everything takes longer in the summer. But yeah, there's two little windows there that are kind of sneaky that I think that people who can take advantage of those once again, not to overthink it. If you
Sure.
have a role or you got someone terminated or whatever, like you got to fill it fast no matter what. It
Mhm.
just adds some days. That's all.
Interesting. So that's kind of was my next question is if I'm an executive considering a transition, would you have any data driven thoughts on yes, I mean you're saying right now is a premier time to be looking, but let's forget that it is right now. I wake up and it's January, I wake up and it's June. Would you consider hold on, maybe don't dive into this just yet, or would you just always say just get started and see what shakes out? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Think always lean toward, have a bias towards action, right?
Gotcha.
I mean, I talked to a guy at church this past Sunday who I know is actively looking for something new.
Mhm.
The longer you get in your career, the typical longer it takes to make a transition. There's
Ah,
just
interesting.
too many things that happen. And look, good things happen fast, man. You might get a phone call from someone that you trust, you like, and the pay and the outputs, the title, all those things match. That does happen. So in people ask me all the time about like biz dev. I said, hey,
Mhm.
best way to do biz dev is just stay alive. Because the
Mhm.
older you get, the more contacts, the more friends you have doing things and in leadership roles that helps your own business. But in regards to the exec, it takes a while. And I think the first kind of third of a search, and I'm talking about a search of like you searching for something yourself,
Mhm.
is evaluating like, hey, do I really want to leave? All right.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. I'm making the assumption this person is not forced to leave. So
Sure.
first third of the process is, hey, do I want to leave? The next third is what do I want to do? And like, is it exactly what I want? Do I want to make a pivot? Whatever. And the last part is the opportunities. Are they available?
Mhm.
And I think that's the biggest challenge for people is that last third. And I've used this analogy before with people, especially high performers who are looking to make changes, let's say mid 30s to mid 40s. Early in your career, it's a lot like golf, or if you started your own business at one point. If you're a really, really good golfer, if I just like something turned the corner and I just dropped like 30 strokes from my game, which gives you a taste of where I'm at right now, and I won my local tournament,
Yeah,
and
you're
then I
club
like
champion
some
all of a sudden.
club champion, and then I did this, and then I'm on the Corn Ferry, and I'm just hitting like 59s all day, every day. Eventually, I'm going to be on the PGA Tour. That will not happen, but it's all about me, right? So if you have a business and you're solo, whatever, you can't build that business by just like producing, producing, producing. Here's the problem though. That's not how it works. If you're looking for a leadership role, like a W-2 format, which is great. Like I'm all about W-2 leadership.
Yeah.
Who's saying that I won't go back to a W-2 route later? Like there is no better or worse here. But using that analogy, man, you could be an incredible quarterback or running back or whatever. But if there's not a team that has the salary available for the
Mhm.
scheme, the whatever, like you can be like the NFL is not the absolute best players. It's the best players who fit those teams, roles, schemes, whatever. There's a lot of guys who do not get picked up just because there's not a spot available for them. They're still really,
Yeah.
really good in NFL caliber. I think that's probably the hardest part about making a transition from a leadership role to a leadership role at that stage of career is the waiting game and that it's not in your control.
So I want to make sure I say that back because I think it's interesting. You're saying you can imagine a scenario where I'm a high performer, I'm a high achiever, and my destiny's up to me. Like I start my business cleaning carpets, and I can go bulldog opportunities to go clean all the carpets, and I can build that. Versus I'm a high performer and I'm a high achiever, but I also have to align that with someone else opening up a role for me. That's what you mean is like
Bingo.
that.
Yep.
That's just in general, not up to you. And then you have to be both aware and timely and able to fill their needs when that role opens. And that is just an extra thing to line up. You're not making your own destiny, so to speak, like you
Yeah.
can imagine doing as a small business owner or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's plenty of people who would, totally nitpick that
Sure.
metaphor about the carpet cleaning. But yeah, that's the general theme is that you have to wait for a great opportunity. Once you get that great opportunity, it can be really fantastic and really lucrative
Right.
and all these things.
Absolutely.
But there is an element of waiting. So that's the challenge. And, I know we talked a little bit before. It's a tough spot to be when your cost of living, your standard of living hits a certain number. and that number's taken away, it can be very challenging in the pocketbook, but it's way more challenging between the years. Um, and people do it all the time. People make
Mhm.
job transitions. They say, "Hey, I'm better off for it. It was a challenging season, whatever." But some people don't, or some people have to take a step back or two steps back and then four steps forward later. Everyone's got their own story, but yeah, I would say it's probably one of the most challenging in the world of like job transitions. One of the most
Mhm.
challenging stories within that narrative is someone who has to have a certain, higher income in a leadership role. And they have to wait for that opportunity. It's one of the hardest, I would say, spots to be.
Man, I can honestly only imagine and draw from the conversations that we've had. But let's dive into that a little bit. So our work is golden handcuffs. When someone's ready to pull the ripcord, what's really tying them down? And we have conversations with executives from that side of the equation, so to speak. You mentioned though that the first third of someone's journey is sort of, are you actually ready to make a move? And you
Mhm.
said again, the biggest problems happen between your ears mostly. I'm curious, when do you see in your conversations a lot of pump fakes, like from the executive searching side to say, "Hey, I'm ready to make a change." I don't really know. Or, "Hey, I'm ready to make a change. Hold on, I didn't realize how golden my handcuffs really were until I started
Yeah,
shopping." How
they
does that play
shiny.
out? They're
They
real
shiny.
shiny.
Sometimes what glitters is gold. Um, Man, I call them tire kickers and coffee sippers. So
Uh-huh.
what does that mean? That means a person who, for the last 2.5 years, has met with everybody in their network, talks about wanting to go do something else, but never does it. I mean, I told a guy last week, and he was great, man. He's coming from more of like a nonprofit world, and I was like, dude, if you want to do it, you got to do it.
Mm.
And it's like, it sounds so simple, but like, you have to do it. And I'm not going like full David Goggins here, but you
Do it.
gotta
Go
do
Goggins.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll keep the language
Yeah.
clean. It's just like, it sounds so simple, but there's so many people that talk about it. They go to coffee, they kick the tires, they don't do it. And sometimes the best answer is to not do it,
Yes.
but you're still doing something and gotta be okay with that. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I've talked about this with friends before, but and follow me on this. I'll try to make it brief. But when you're in that job search, you're in that first third, you're figuring out
Mhm.
what you want to do and you're evaluating the handcuffs. You're seeing how shiny they are. You're biting them to see if it's real gold,
Mhm.
which is also important, man.
Mhm.
That equity that's keeping you, what's the cash value of that equity? Have you
Yes.
really talked to the CFO and really figured out what that means? Because that dot moving a little bit more to the right after that last round,
Mhm.
you, you got to know your stuff. Like, do your math. It's amazing how many people don't do their math. So anyway, going back to like the what, like people figuring out what they want to do. Here's the thing, in that scenario, especially at that level, when you start meeting with people and trying to figure out whether or not you want to leave,
Mhm.
you have what conversations and how conversations. And what do I mean by that? What conversations is you going to coffee or lunch with a buddy or a mentor or a friend and saying, "Hey, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do."
Mm.
How conversations is usually like a 20-minute phone call with a high influential person in your network. What are they going to ask you at the end of it? They're going to say, "How can I help you?" You don't need to be going to how people with what questions. They can't figure out, they can't
Mm.
help you what you want to do. They want to help in the how, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably if I had like one thing to say to someone who's a high performer, whether they're like a senior leader or not, is divide up your contact list of what people and how people and try not to mix them. Once again, some
Oh,
people are
that's
what
so
and
good.
how people. Your
Sure.
mentor, who's a
Yeah.
part of that process, they're going to even be more dialed into the how, but the problem is when you get on that Zoom call with that person who you haven't talked to in a year, they want to help, they love you, but then they don't know how to help and you're not prepared for that question, that opportunity's gone. Yeah, you can
Man,
circle back, but we've all been there, man. It sucks.
that's so good. The what people and how people, that's so good. And I think I mean, we see it in like the small business world too, where there, the indoctrination coming from a certain group of people that's really not serving you or serving your specific purpose right now.
Yeah.
And I think that could totally happen as people are assessing their options. I'm curious. So like we like to say, when someone's constructing their corporate exit plan, that we want you to feel free to not exit. Your exit plan
Yeah.
is done when you feel free to stay. Like it's not a given that you should anything. But you may find we've done this work, you've laid out your options, you've got your plan, and you're like, but I'm good for now, or whatever your timeline might be. And I think you're kind of saying that is we might go through this process and really shop and really see what's going on. And it's actually the best outcome of that is for you to know and feel good right where you're at.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know, when you're 17 doing college visits and you go visit a campus and you hate it, great.
Yeah.
You just spent
Cross
4
it off
hours
the
there,
list.
better than 4 years,
Mhm.
and it's surprising. It's funny you said that because I was talking about that guy, a couple weeks ago I was talking to. It's like one of the best outputs from going through this process is you're like, you know what? This place is kind of great. And you know what? My pay could be 12,000 more, but wow, I have like a lot of flexibility
Mhm.
and I really like my boss. And like, I just did an interview with this company, looked at their glass door and their reviews are terrible. Like you start to kind of like get grateful, right?
Mhm.
I got an older house and there's sometimes where I'm like, man, I want to burn this to the ground. Right.
Yeah. Been
Then I
there.
go start looking at other houses and seeing like the post, 2021 price tag on them and how far a drive they are from my office and all this stuff. And I'm like, I felt like my house.
Yeah.
So it's a good exercise to always be looking, but at the same time, you need to be okay with the outcome not being what you expect. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's right in front of you.
Man, that I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I'm curious. So you were talking about as people go through this process, do you have any just thoughts in general on how an executive should weigh a lucrative comp package or even assessing a comp package versus the potential career growth or culture growth, even if it's like, I don't like the environment where I'm at. How do you compare those things when they feel like you're talking in two different currencies when it's money versus culture or
I
money
know.
versus potential growth? How do you think
Yeah,
through that?
man, I mean, that's a really good question because it is kind of like a little matrix, right? It's like,
Mhm.
what's that scene in Beautiful Mind where he's like doing the chalk and stuff? It's like,
Yeah.
or even better, like the Hangover, GIF, whatever. I
Mhm.
don't even know that guy's name. But it's like, okay, I could make 15 grand more, but I'd also be
Yeah.
in the office more. I can make 5 grand less, but I'd also get to golf on Friday with my buddies. No one can make that decision but you, right? So everybody has different value adds. I mean,
Mhm.
20 grand more a year, even do the math on what that is monthly, take out what Uncle Sam's, taking. And it's like, okay, let's put a price on that because you are not playing golf on Friday afternoon if you take this job.
Mhm.
Is it worth $800 a month? You'd say, no. Well, you
Mhm.
got to do that math. And like, Pete, there's just so many people who don't do the math. They think short term and they also look at their buddy who might do X, Y, Z. I mean,
Sure.
it's a story as old as time, especially since 2007. Get off social media.
Mhm.
There's so many things that you see these people buying these businesses or leaving this cush job to go do whatever. Great. That was them. I mean, their wife could be a Rockefeller for all you know. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Just do your thing. Just do your thing. And I think a lot of people get so obsessed with like the shiny object, but they're looking at someone else's ring. It's like,
Mhm.
dude, stop.
I'm curious. You mentioned we see right now like lifestyle perks are really being used as a real employee benefit, like famously in the tech world with campus type stuff. But now we're seeing it even down to return to office in a lot of more
Yeah.
traditional industries, even private businesses. Um, is that something that's come up for in your searches, either employer or employee side of that being the key focus of the conversation, the flexibility or other lifestyle perks?
Yeah, definitely the finish line. Cause just once again, sometimes someone wants that 5K more just so they can go home and say, hey, I got a raise, right?
Mhm.
Some people don't care about the 5K or the title. They just, it's really important for them to be able to pick up their daughter on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
Mhm.
So I think as an employer, just kind of flip it a little bit, kind of speak to the business owners is that find what matters. Don't be like throwing out some random, like, you know, membership or something when they don't want it, right? It's like, hey, here's a
Yeah.
CrossFit membership. It's like, well, dude, I blew out my back in high
Yeah.
school. I only do yoga. It's like, thanks for nothing. But it's amazing how many people, classic life, sales, whatever, they give you something that you never asked for and you didn't ask for because you didn't want it. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, to answer your question, 100% the perks still matter, but it's not like you see the day in the life tech stuff. It's like makes me want to
Mhm.
vomit. Some of the stuff, it's just crazy. But most of that stuff doesn't really it matters to a certain like urban Gen Z youth, but most kind of high level executives, they just want, you know, They want more reasonable things, in my opinion.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I think it tracks with like the average type person that they're
Yeah.
on average, they're not looking for something super crazy.
Yeah. I mean, look, if someone has a truck at one business and you're trying to get them, they need a truck at the second one, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So something like that, where it's like, if you're offering a great package, but they have
Yeah,
to pay
right.
for gas when they haven't paid in 12 years, that's gonna be a
Mhm.
major thing mentally.
Right. No, that makes sense. And you that goes back to you being specific and reasonable to say
Yeah.
that that is something that makes sense for the role and I can articulate what and why. And so we can. Okay, so like before we actually run out of time, can I hit you with some rapid fire?
Please do. It's so
I
fun, man.
understand you might not have set frameworks for what I'm about to ask you, but maybe after I ask you, you will. And so
Ooh, love the
we'll jot them down.
challenge.
All right. So I'm an executive. I'm at the outset. I'm even approaching that first third. You thought, what should I be doing to plan a smart? I'm going to use the word exit, but I'm a transition to a new role. Like what are the steps I should take if I'm in that position?
Ooh, that's really good, man. So like kind of, I like this. Maybe we need to talk more about this whole third thing. Cause I kind of said that off the cuff, but I think it makes sense.
I
'Cause
think it's suiting you.
that first suiting me. Oh, that first third is so important because there's a lot of looking in the mirror. A couple things, rapid fire. One, don't do it alone, right?
Mm,
This is, famous pastor Tim Keller. He says, you want to figure out what you want to do. What do you enjoy and what are you good at? What does your community say that you're enjoying, that you're good at? And then lastly, what opportunities become available? All right. So you see American Idol all the time. Someone up there sounds like a, a frog with a sore throat singing. Well, it's like, okay,
mhm,
love your confidence. You're terrible at singing though, but also
right.
shame on your family and friends for letting you do
Right.
this.
Does no one love you? Yeah.
Does no one love you to tell you that you sound terrible? So it's like, I think there is an element, once again, what people, as close as your, husband or wife or, close friend groups, mentors, whatever. So that's the first step is like really do some due diligence on just you.
Mhm.
Second thing is due diligence on your money, right? What is your burn rate? Like, how much is that equity really worth? What are your monthly expenses? If you're spending 15 G's a month and your equity is worth a third of what you thought because you like
Mhm.
popped it into chat GPT or something, you got to get really, really tight. And I think a lot of times people actually don't know what their equity value is. They don't know how much they're spending just from a cash standpoint as a family. And those two things are really critical, right? Because you can
Mhm.
convince yourself that that equity is worth more than it actually is. And also you can convince yourself that you're spending a lot less money than you think. So
Yeah.
I think those are a few things, just doing the math on yourself, but also your books.
Mm,
And I think lastly, just kind of a little curveball, I think just spend time not thinking about it and
mm,
not obsessing over it. I think a lot of times, especially we're talking about these high performers who are in a position to even have these golden handcuffs available. Like that in itself is like a blessing and a privilege.
mhm.
Sometimes you just obsess with it too much. Like
Yeah.
y- your life's joy and happiness does not hinge on what job you end up taking or equity you end up whatever. Like, yes, there can be some life-changing circumstances, but I think just relieving the pressure and that just because you spent 10 years at the role you're at now doesn't mean you have to spend 10 years
Mhm.
to the next. And I'll end it with this. A lot of times people try to answer questions that aren't being asked. No one's asking you to like make a 15-year commitment to this next role. If you're
Sure.
not happy, you feel like you'd be challenged somewhere else, then leave. Like in
Mhm.
order to do it, you got to do it. And I think a lot of times people really, really overthink stuff and just don't bank on just like the laws of the economy. It's like wherever you land, if you work hard, have high integrity, and treat people well, you're typically
Mhm.
going to be rewarded for that eventually.
I've started saying a couple years ago, I think it was during COVID when everything felt like a mess, was, you know how you go to a coffee shop and they ask if you want room? I
Yeah.
started saying they don't ask for room so that you can fill it with cream and sugar. They ask for room so you can stir it without making a mess.
Yeah.
And that's how I started viewing perspective was like, it's not because you have to fill it to the max. It's because you literally need some space to be able to see things correctly. And that can come from other
Yeah.
people, but it can also come from being able to step away. So stopping obsessing about get a little distance from your current daily whatever's right in front of your face.
Yeah. And also
Um,
try to be
you
a
go a real
what or
long
a
way.
how, try to be a what or a how person for someone else.
Interesting. Yeah.
Don't be
Mhm.
that person who's like always hammering their personal network, trying to get this like magic golden key of life advice, or like being some Twitter tryhard, trying to like jump on everybody's calendar who has over,
Mhm.
6,000 followers or whatever. Like, dude, just locally, like, or on Twitter, whatever, like, try to be a what and how person for someone else. Like,
Mhm.
good things might happen for you in that. But like, I think just getting your eyes off yourself can be one of the best things you can do
Mhm.
in a decision making process.
That makes sense. Okay, I got one more question. I think it matters for right now is what, if anything, is different, and what guidance can you offer for executives that are facing an unexpected exit from a M&A event, from layoffs, anything that would apply to those things that we know, like, are by nature are sudden or unexpected?
Yeah. I did not get these questions before. These are really good. Um,
That'd be too
my
easy.
my first response is just like be cool. Like I know it's really hard. The really the first response is like don't put yourself in a position. If you're listening to this and you're not fired, then get in a position right now where you're prepared if you are, right?
Mhm.
So like I can say be cool if you're like prepared and like your cash flow personally, your earning potential. Like if you're already spending more than you make, then stop doing that.
Mhm.
Like right now. Um, but I think for someone who like gets the pink slip like today, definitely decompress, definitely just take a breath. But I think the biggest thing is just perspective, right? And once again, man, I could talk a lot on like kind of how to rebound from that. I think
Mhm.
probably the most important thing for someone to hear from someone who's kind of like behind the scenes in recruiting and hiring and placements is that that story has happened more in the last 5 years than probably the last 25 years before it.
Hmm.
Like it's way more common than people think. I think some of it is just like all the change in the economy, COVID, or whatever. So what used to be like a scarlet letter of like, I got terminated or whatever, that's not really exist anymore. Like everyone has some form of story of having like a major life change adjustment professionally. So sometimes the fact that the normalization of that, I think will help people deal with it when it happens to them.
That there's a lot of wisdom there. That makes surely that'd be comforting for a lot of people to hear. So tell me, how can people, if an executive or a company is looking for to search or to fill a role, best engage with you, and how can they best prepare for just it being a productive arrangement or even conversation? What are the steps
Yeah.
that you would want to see?
No, I appreciate it. Look, I help companies find people, not people find companies, right? So ultimately, the companies pay me. So
Mhm.
if you're a privately owned business and you're looking for a sales, marketing, operations leader, typically roles that are like 100 to 250K plus, that's really our sweet spot right now.
Mhm.
We love to talk to you, right? Like unashamedly, dad, my wife's pregnant with our third. I don't know when this is going live, but dad of three, hungry to make deals, love making placements. We're coming up on 2 years in January. I didn't share a lot about my story, but I've been recruiting off and on for the last 15 years, but
Mm.
started Kalmar Group in January of 2024. So anyway, for the business owners and hiring managers out there, we love to talk, especially if some of this has resonated with you. For the executives, we still love to get connected with people. We are going to be debuting like a Kalmar Careers type consulting arm of the business. That'll be in 2026. So thanks for teaming me up there. I didn't ask you to do that
Amazing.
because there's a lot of times people message us and there's just not a lot we can do because if we don't have a role available right then that matches their comp, their title, their outputs, we just can't help. And it stinks. That is the worst part about my job, man, is when a high performer comes to me and he or she is a freaking baller and I
Mhm.
can't place them anywhere because we don't have the bandwidth or the opportunities or just like the industry right then. So we are working on something to help those people, at least give some guidance and some of the things that we've talked about debuting in 2026. So for all the executives out there who are need leaders, obviously we love to talk. For any leaders who need opportunities, would still be happy to get connected. We just like to set the expectation is that like they don't pay us, but we do have like a survey they can fill out to get in our system, and we have placed people through that. It's just
Mhm.
a little more not as like time sensitive.
Man, that's phenomenal. I can't wait to hear more about that as you roll it out. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time to
It was
chat.
fun,
I'm looking
man.
forward to pushing this out and getting some info into people's hands. And man, we'll keep this conversation going.